You're watching News at Prime. Let's take you back now to one of our leading stories. The Democratic Alliance's Cilliers Brink has lost a vote, which saw ActionSA's Dr. Nasiphi Moya being elected as the new mayor of Tshwane. She's promising to bring stability in the metro during her maiden speech. Let's get more reaction now. The Gauteng DA leader is Solly Msimanga, who joins us now. Mr. Msimanga, good evening to you and thanks for your time. On the back of the election of Dr. Moya, Cilliers Brink says he and his team are going to go back and prepare to return to government. How? What is the plan?
Well, Solly, you would know that we have been in opposition for a very, very long time. We got into government. We were taken out through an administrative illegal takeover that took place through a Section 139 in Tshwane, and we had to fight in court, and we had to then, get back and to really re-establish government that was working, and this was beginning to then bear fruit in there. So what we are going to do right now is we're going to go back into the opposition benches. We are going to then also go launch our campaign. I think we will be launching our 2026 election campaign much earlier than what we wanted to. But, the people of Tshwane need to be hearing our message, and that's what we're going to be doing. So we will be preparing, to come back into government, because if the previous election is anything to go by, the outcome is anything to go by, we have some serious work to do. And we are going to then return in government, whether we do it before 2026 or we do it in 2026, but we are going to be back.
Dr. Moya, in her maiden speech today, she says that the finances of the city, including service delivery, is going to be the name of the game. If you're an analyst or you are an ordinary citizen listening to this, you will think that she was not part of the Brink administration and therefore perhaps there was no delivery of services. Does that irk you? How does that sit with you, given that here's someone who was deputy mayor to Brink and she's saying the finances are obviously in bad shape and the delivery of services is something that is going to be for everybody else, not a few? Surely you've got to respond to that.
Yeah, well, this is something that has been bizarrely taking place for the last month. I think even when I spoke to you I think it was last week or week before, I asked the question, but where were they in the last 2 years? Because they were being part of government. They were there in the executive committee meeting, signing off on some of these things. You'd remember now there's an issue around, the victory. Now they're claiming that, they were all for workers, getting increases while they were there signing off on the report that went to council to say council in that particular year wasn't able to then, pay increases. They signed off on that. They signed off on the plan of action, which now they claim is their own plan of action, which they were not. Which is something that was actually then put together by the whole coalition group. The plan of action in terms of the financial, rescue plan, in terms of the Royval water, which is leading to the Hammanskraal water problem, in terms of other projects that they've been part of. So it is very bizarre that they will claim victories, for certain things, and then when there were challenges, then they will say, oh well, then it was the DA's fault. It was the DA's mayor. In fact, the new executive mayor was the deputy executive mayor, who was also responsible for regional, operations, which meant that that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where delivery is actually then supposed to be taking place. You talk about, the issues of, water shortages in certain areas. She was responsible for that. When there's no water in Hammanskraal. The MMCs that were under that cluster were reporting to her. So when you have then somebody saying, this was somebody else's fault and now we're going to do it, the question is, why were you not part of doing it previously?
But you've also got to admit that you were beaten hands down here, because the number of votes she received versus Cilliers Brink's numbers, it probably made you weep a little bit. She is a former DA member, having occupied several positions. She left your party in 2021. She's highly qualified. You can't argue against her competence, can you?
No, we're not. I'm not going to sit here and talk about a person. I'm not arguing personalities here, Dolly. This will be the last thing that we'll do. What I'll talk to is principles, and what I'll talk to is precedents. And I can tell you there's a precedent that we have seen with Kwamanda, that we have seen with quite a number of mayors, even in Ekurhuleni, where if the ANC cannot agree with the EFF on who to put up, they will go and look for somebody else who is not part of the two, organizations, and then that's who they will then put up until such time as they decide otherwise, and then you will see something happening. Now, it has happened twice already in Johannesburg. It's happened twice, or it's happened once in Ekurhuleni. The question is, why wouldn't it happen in Tshwane?
I guess, Solly Msimanga, what I'm driving at here is that here is a person who is academically qualified, and it's not just a diploma. She has a master's in philosophy. She also has a PhD in political science from the University of the Western Cape. In an era where people with matric certificates are seen to be underqualified, I'm saying to you, perhaps this is someone who is desperately needed for a municipality that's on its knees.
Well, Cilliers Brink is a very qualified somebody. In fact, is a practicing lawyer who understands issues of legalities around, administration, who understands legalities, human resource management, who understands law to its latter. And this is somebody that is very much highly qualified. And this is why I'm saying to you, for me, it has never really been about the individual. Yes, she's very much qualified and very much capable. That I'm not going to take from her. But I'm saying to you that, this is a convenience, a marriage of convenience. I've said to you that, the ANC and the EFF will always do this if they cannot find a candidate amongst themselves. You would know that within the ANC, there has been a push to get Kgosi Mahepa in as a candidate that was preferred by one faction, which was rejected by the regional guys who wanted then Tate Modise to be, their candidate, which was also rejected by others at the provincial level. So now there was no ANC candidate, if you like. Then it was to then say we need to then look at somebody else. They couldn't get a candidate from the EFF, and therefore then they will go and look for somebody else who's somewhere else. And this is what they ended up with. So I'm not talking about the the credibility of the individual. And if you want to take it there, where was those those skills when this person was the deputy mayor of the city of Tshwane? So we can argue about, the matric certificates of certain people, and we can argue about people that are sitting with doctorates. We have people that are sitting with multiple masters and messing up provinces somewhere else. So, you can have the highest qualifications and still not be able to then get things under control. Yeah. And you can still be, the lowest or the least academically inclined person and still be able to then do much. I think it's about the team that you bring around you. I think it's about, having the support in this instance of the coalition partners around you, and making sure that at the end of the day, they're not pulling strings while you are the face, and then somebody else is sitting in the back and pulling the strings. And when they're tired of you, then you get to be tossed out like a used tissue paper. And this is what we have seen. I've said to you, we have seen this not only once, not twice, but 3 times already in metros in Gauteng.
What you are pointing to in that last comment, that this is someone who possibly is going to be pulled by the nose by the parties that have helped her into the position. And of course, the accusations against at least one of these parties is that corruption has completely subsumed the ANC, and therefore she may not be able to withstand the pressure when that time, if and when it does arrive, where she's asked to deliver on a favor or two, she says she is extremely allergic to corruption. It's one of the things that she is going to demand of her team. In fact, she was on air, I think a few days ago, where she was talking about lifestyle audits that her mayoral committee will have to go through before they are actually appointed. Are you saying that she is not going to live up to her promise of being incorruptible?
I wish her the best of luck, especially with the names that have been taunted as being some of the executive members. I don't want to go into personalities, but the best of luck to her if she thinks that she's going to get any of those people to go and do lifestyle audits. If she's going to be able to then rein some of these things that, will eventually, lead to a lot of corruption, a lot of maladministration in that particular administration. We want to wish her the best of luck. But as I said, we will be there, to hold them to account. And if she's saying that, maybe you should then be asking her in a couple of months' time, where are those lifestyle audits? As Panyaza has promised us that there will be lifestyle audits of, the executive at the provincial level. And this was promised by David Makura even before. We're still waiting for those. How many years later? And we are saying to you, these are things that, somebody who ideally would want to then see happening. But then, as I said, if you have the wrong team around you, it's just not going to happen, God.
Interesting indeed. Solly, one final question. Can we take it then that this is case closed? There is not going to be any loud hailers from the side of the DA about the GNU at national level being under threat? All what you are going to do, looking back at your first response, is that you are now going to look to the 2026 election campaign so that you started early in order to make inroads. Case closed. Is that it?
Well, there's quite a number of things that are going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks, early. From a provincial perspective, from a number of municipal perspective. You just be on the lookout for that, because we do believe that there's a certain number of people that now need to then, they need to then answer for, what has been happening at these municipalities and what has been happening at a provincial level. And we will then, from a Tshwane perspective, we will then be taking our seat in the opposition, but obviously we will then be monitoring, what will be happening. And as I said to you, looking at, some of the names that are counted out there, it wouldn't be long until we may be having a conversation again very soon.
Solly, you're not going to avoid my question that quickly. I'm saying to you, as far as you know, the GNU at national government is intact, yes?
No, the GNU at a national level is intact. I've said this to you before, that at a national level, there has been and there continues to be a sober, conversation about what needs to happen. There is a well-coordinated, team that is working around, bringing back investor confidence, that is working at getting the economy going again. And we can see the results thereof. I mean, we are seeing the rand that is now, that is strengthening more and more, investor confidence that is strengthening more and more. So at a national level, I can tell you now that this is holding. We are actually then going to be talking more about what happens at a provincial level and what happens at a local level. But I did tell you last week that you're able to then connect the dots of what has happened at a provincial level, the kind of pressure that has been put onto the municipal level, because Nasiphi in reality is that he doesn't have the numbers at a provincial level, and he will use every proxy that he can to make sure that he solidify power, so that the same people will be able to then back him up at a provincial level. So that's what it is. So our fight is not at a national level. Our fight will be here, and we'll be taking it, as I said, going forward.
Solly Msimanga, thank you very much for your time. Gauteng DA leader. Yeah, the GNU at national, it is intact. I suppose we can sleep easy knowing that we still have a government. We're still going to have a government.